Number 10. Carter Slade. The original Ghost Rider was actually referred to as the Phantom Rider. Carter Slade made his first comic book appearance in Ghost Rider 1 way back in 1967. Born in Ohio in the mid-19th century, Carter had aspirations to become a teacher, so he rode from Ohio to Montana. But during this commute, he was shot by guys dressed up as Native Americans. They were a bunch of white dudes, all of them canceled, immediately canceled. Comics are very dated now, so things like this happen and you're like, okay, let's just see where the story goes. A doctor named Flaming Star took Carter after that point and prayed, he chanted, he did everything he could to save his life. Now the secret ingredient was glowing dust from a shooting star that he had from earlier and a special cape that he prepared. He saw the shooting star and knew that somebody important was going to come along. Okay, fair. Great call, Flaming Star. Also, great name. Carter's a pretty cool Ghost Rider. I mean, he carries with him these spirit guns, which are way more impressive than spirit fingers. Number 9. Johnny Blaze. Next on the list we have Johnny Blaze, another OG Ghost Rider. He made his first debut in Marvel Spotlight issue 5 in 1971, so 4 years after Carter Slade. Johnny began his mortal days as a stunt performer. He was great at handling a motorcycle, and Johnny became bound to Zarathos, the spirit of vengeance, after he made a deal with Mephisto to save his father, Crash Simpson's, life. You know, one of those classic scenarios we all get into. So now Johnny Blaze and his Hell Cycle control Hellfire and inflict it upon others that he deems evil with the help of his pendant stare. Nicolas Cage actually killed it as the Ghost Rider. I would not mind an older, crazier Nick Cage in the MCU. They can do it. Number 8. Caleb. Coming from Ghost Rider Trail of Tears issue 1, Caleb and his family were attacked one night and Caleb was killed by George Regan and his gang. Not a pleasant time at all, not a good origin. But then cut to 2 years later down the road, Caleb returns from the dead. Voila, how alarming. Brought back by some form of spirit of vengeance, in Trail of Tears issue 2, Caleb's friend Travis Parham returns and finds Caleb in his new ability to control corpses and travel through dimensions via Hellfire. So things have changed for them. The unlikely duo worked together tracking down other members of Regan's gang for, well, his death. They obviously wanted payback. Caleb is sick. He rides a flaming horse and he's got a chain. He's got bling, bonus points for some devil bling. Number 7, Robbie Reyes. Making his first appearance in all-new Ghost Rider issue 1, Robbie was a young LA mechanic living in Hill Rock Heights. His area was full of gangs, so it wasn't exactly easy for him or his brother Gabriel. Now when Robbie heard of a street race offering the winner $50,000, he just had to compete. All that knowledge in cars, he's like, yo, I'm gonna smoke these fools. All that money too would get him and his brother out of there. So while he was winning, he was in first place during this race, he thought that cops were on his tail, so he booked it and eventually he hit a dead end. He got out to explain and whatnot and say, hey, sorry, I'm doing a race trying to win some money, but then he realized they weren't in fact officers, but it was already too late. They opened fire on Robbie and he unfortunately did not survive. When the attackers went to burn the car, because evidence, they didn't realize that the car was possessed by a ghost and that ghost possessed Robbie, making him a new Ghost Rider. And of course he had to dish out some sweet payback. This guy is extremely powerful. I mean, in Avengers Volume 8, Issue 25, Robbie uses his chain manifestation and it's so strong that it ripped a Celestial's arm right out of place. How wild is that? Number 6, Danny Ketch. Danny came around in comics nearly 20 years after Johnny Blaze in Ghost Rider Volume 3, Issue 1. He was the son of Barton Blaze and Naomi Ketch. So when he was a teenager, Danny and his sister Barbara hit up a graveyard to get the real Halloween spooky vibe, let's do it, and also to take photos of Harry Houdini's grave. Those two things we always want to do on Halloween. While they were there, two gangs started to fight, one led by Deathwatch and the other with henchmen of Kingpin. So Barbara shrieked in fear as everything went down, naturally so. Deathwatch heard her, and then she was shot in the chest with an arrow, just horrible stuff. Danny grabbed her and took off. While he was catching his breath, figuring out what to do with his sister, he saw this beautiful motorbike with a glowing gas cap and touched it. He then became a Ghost Rider whose mission was to go after those who shed the blood of the innocent, such as his sister.
Number 5, Shoba Mirza. Okay, scrap that. A flaming elephant is way cooler. Shoba Mirza was a version of Ghost Rider that presumably came from India based on the name and the fact that she rides a freaking elephant. Shoba was an important part of the comics because she, in a way, introduced Daniel Ketch to the idea that there were other spirits of vengeance out there. She initially sought him out looking for help, but when she realized that he had descended into drunkenness this, she ended up actually saving him. When she was mortally wounded, she got Ketch to absorb her powers into himself, which freed her from her torment. Did I mention that she rides a flaming elephant and that she has 4 arms? Seriously awesome. Number 4, Goose Rider. Yep, gotta have the larval Earth version. This Ghost Rider of Earth 8311 is one of the famous anthropomorphic heroes that we've seen in other alternative lists, and he's pretty ridiculous looking. His exploits are rather strange, getting angry when kids use his bike to roast marshmallows and killing the villain Chainsaw by dropping an anvil on him. He was later transported into the Secret Furs by the bee yonder. Yeah, Secret Furs is supposed to be the animal version of Secret Wars. Weak. Number 3, Kenshiro Cochrane. Kenshiro Cochrane, or Ghost Rider 2099. Kenshiro Zero Cochrane was a hacker who was facing death for stealing information from the Demonics Corporation. But before he was killed, he downloaded his mind to cyberspace. Here it was found by artificial intelligences called the Ghostworks, who asked Zero to be their champion in the real world. So he was downloaded into a powerful robot body with a number of abilities like super strength and durability. His hands could also transform, allowing him to create a chainsaw that shoots energy and a claw that can slice on a subatomic level. And he had advanced stealth technologies. Riding a futuristic looking motorcycle, Ghost Rider 2099 was one of the most unique and one of the coolest versions ever. Number 2, Robbie Reyes. Robbie Reyes was a really neat Ghost Rider because his powers came from a different source. Rather than being possessed by a spirit of vengeance, he shares his body with the spirit of a Satan-worshipping serial killer named Eli Morrow. He does have many of the same abilities, creating fire, fighting with chains, and banishing dudes to hell, but he rides a frickin' 69 Dodge Charger called the Hell Charger, and it's awesome. Of course it is. Robbie Reyes has been a pretty great Ghost Rider, and really shone in the Ghost Racer series. Definitely suggest reading those, they're pretty good. Number 1, Daniel Ketch. Daniel Ketch is probably the most influential version of Ghost Rider other than Johnny Blaze himself. Ketch became Ghost Rider as a teenager and took to the streets as a Ghost Rider, even fighting with Hulk, Spider-Man, and Wolverine in the new Fantastic Four. He was pursued for a time by Johnny Blaze, thinking he was the spirit of Zarathos. Blaze soon learned that this wasn't the case. He later went on a crusade in the name of Zadkiel, the Mad Angel, thinking that he was taking the powers of other riders to prevent their corruption. In reality, Zadkiel was using him in hopes of using the powers to wage war on heaven, something that Ketch learned the hard way. He did redeem himself though, turning around and joining the other spirits of vengeance to defeat Zadkiel before he could do too much damage. Ketch was a sick Ghost Rider who has been a very popular version since he was first introduced.
Number 10. Goose Rider. Coming from the same animal-themed alternate universe as Spider-Ham, little is known about this variant of Ghost Rider other than the fact that he is a goose. This may not seem very powerful to some of you, but anyone who has ever dealt with a Canada goose knows how truly dangerous, despicable, and vengeful they can be. The idea of one of these awful creatures also being granted the powers of Ghost Rider is a truly terrifying thing to contemplate, and worth at least the number 10 spot on this list. Number 9. Ghost Rider 2099. The Ghost Rider of the year 2099 is actually the only entry on this list that doesn't get their powers from any demonic source. Zero Cochrane is instead a young computer hacker who was murdered by a rival street gang while out on a hacking mission. In an origin story not dissimilar to Chucky from Child's Play, Zero managed to download his mind into the internet before dying. He was greeted by a group of digital beings who sent him back in a robot body. Realizing that the robo body resembled the original Ghost Rider, Zero decided to take on the identity despite not technically being a Ghost Rider. Zero's power grid in the official handbook of the Marvel Universe actually lists his abilities as being much higher than many of the other Ghost Riders on this list, but as they are not a true Ghost Rider, I have decided to rank him pretty low. Number 8. Ghost Spider. A Peter Parker from an alternate dimension who travels the multiverse with the help of his Uncle Ben, stealing the powers of other Spider-Men in order to better defend his universe. The Amazing Spider, as he called himself, eventually kidnapped the Spider-Man of Earth 616 and brought him to his universe. When Spidey learned of his misguided alternate's plan, he managed to convince him that what he was doing was wrong. Although evil Uncle Ben tried to kill the mainstream Spider-Man, the Spider gave up his life to save the Peter of Earth 616. The Spider was brought back to life by his universe's Doctor Strange and turned into Ghost Spider. We have yet to see this version of Ghost Rider in action, but the mere idea of Spider-Man being granted the demonic powers of the Ghost Rider in addition to his spider powers sounds like a total powerhouse. Unfortunately, the lack of follow-up leaves him in the number 8 slot. Number 7. Danny Ketch. While visiting Houdini's grave, Danny Ketch and his sister were caught in the crossfire of a gang war. While hiding with his injured sister, Danny came across a motorbike with a glowing gas cap. The gas cap turned out to be a mystical amulet, which transformed him into Ghost Rider. In addition to the usual Ghost Rider powers, Danny is also able to transform into a spirit of corruption, giving him an armored appearance and giving him the ability to fight the spirits of vengeance. While he is a beloved incarnation of the character, there are other versions who are more powerful, even if they aren't as interesting of a character, which is why Danny is relatively low on the ranking. Number 6. Caleb. A Civil War era black man, Caleb was able to purchase his and his family's freedom and set up a life for himself on a farm. Aided by his friend Travis, a former Confederate soldier who Caleb had saved the life of, he was able to set up a pretty good life for himself. Unfortunately, a gang led by a man named George Regan killed Caleb and his family in a racist attack. Caleb was brought back as a Ghost Rider and teamed up with Travis to hunt down the men who had destroyed his family and get his revenge. Because of the personal nature of his mission, Caleb has a determination that makes him truly terrifying to behold. He has all of the standard Ghost Rider powers, such as the flaming skull and the penance stare, but he has also displayed powers that none of the other Ghost Riders have shown to be capable of. These include the power to travel between dimensions with the use of his Hellfire, and the ability to possess and control the corpses of his victims.
In at 5, the Hell Cycle. The Hell Cycle is the product of the Spirit of Vengeance, the power that Castle was given when he became Ghost Rider. But after he was endowed with the power Cosmic as Galactus' new Herald, his Hell Cycle got a bit of an upgrade. Think of it kind of like Silver Surfer's surfboard, except, well, a motorcycle, obviously. In addition to his now Cosmic Hell Cycle, Castle's firearms and chains also got an upgrade when he went Cosmic too. They're forged from the bones of Sidorak, and are pretty much indestructible. Not even Thanos could break them, as seen in Thanos issue 13 volume 2. Moving on to number 4, his powers. The Cosmic Ghost Rider's powers are made up of 2 main abilities. The Spirit of Vengeance, a power that Ghost Rider fans should be no stranger to, and the power Cosmic, something that those familiar with the Silver Surfer or Galactus definitely know a thing or two about. Now the Spirit of Vengeance, which was granted to Castle after he made his deal with Mephisto, allows him to have superhuman strength and durability, and of course to manipulate and project Hellfire, which also extends to infusing objects with it, like his Hell Cycle. The Rider has also depicted the ability to unleash omnidirectional Hellfire blasts that can incinerate pretty much everything around him. Castle also inherited the Penance Stare ability from the Spirit of Vengeance, which is an ability that can incapacitate victims in close combat when locking eyes with them. It induces self-mortification that exposes the victim to every negative action, behavior, feeling, and sensation, aka sins of the past, that they've committed, an ability that can only be used to avenge the innocent. Now fun fact, the Punisher in his regular form is immune to the Penance Stare, since he has no guilt for the murders that he's committed. Moving on to the power Cosmic though. Endowed with the power Cosmic, like all of the other Heralds of Galactus in the past, it allowed Castle to travel interstellar distances, project energy, and infuse his Penance Stare with the power Cosmic that allows him to incinerate any sinner that he comes across. Intense, isn't it? There's a whole lot else that the power Cosmic can do too, but those additional details were never fully depicted in the series that the Rider appeared in. Now, what about his weaknesses? Well, that brings us to our next number. Up next at 3, his death. The Rider met his untimely end when the Fallen One, the Earth TRN 666 version of Silver Surfer, used Mjolnir to smash Rider to bits, while King Thanos was trying to execute his plan and, well, his younger self too. Now for context, this Norrin Rad was hunted down by Thanos when he was Galactus' Herald. During one encounter, Surfer had teleported Galactus to safety, and somehow managed to evade Thanos himself. But Galactus believed him to be dead, and centuries later Surfer witnessed Galactus' death via the Mad Titan. So in order to take on Thanos, he decided to make himself worthy of carrying Mjolnir, spending a millennia doing so. He would become jet black thanks to being imbued with black matter. He too would die the same issue as the Rider, and at the hands of the Twin Titans, aka King Thanos and his younger Thanos self. Now unlike the Fallen One though, this wasn't the end of the Rider, which brings us to number 2, Valhalla. Here's where things get interesting yet again. After he's killed by the Fallen One, Frank was retrieved from his now dead timeline by an Odin of another reality, and rewarded with Valhalla, as seen in Thanos Annual Volume 2 Issue 1. But as you can imagine, Valhalla didn't really bode well with Castle. Odin saw this and decided to return his powers to him, along with sending him back to whatever time and place that he desired. So what does Frank decide to do? Well, he gets Odin to send him back to the day that Thanos was born, with the intention of killing the Mad Titan in order to prevent him from growing up and causing all of the destruction that his future self would bring upon the universe. Frank arrives to that time period, finds the baby version of Thanos, and uses his Penance Stare on the child, only to discover something very interesting. Thanos, at this point, was not evil. And that brings us to our final number, and at 1, he raised the Mad Titan. Now, upon discovering that the baby Thanos didn't have any evil within him, Castle had a change of heart, and decided to change his plans too. Enter Cosmic Ghost Rider Issue 1, released in the later half of 2018. Cosmic Ghost Rider decides to take this young Thanos under his wing, so to speak, in hopes of changing his future. Knowing what is going to happen next in this timeline, Castle goes to see Galactus, and tries to convince him to aid him. Galactus refuses though, after looking through Frank's memories and seeing his past and all the events that occurred. So Frank, pissed off at Galactus, decides that he'll just raise Thanos on his own, which alters the timeline in a drastic way. The Guardians of the Galaxy try to prevent this, but Frank ends up killing them alongside baby Thanos. That's when he's greeted by future Thanos, who has now become the Punisher himself, and promises his father figure that there's still a place for him as his herald. Eventually, by issue 5, this future Punisher Thanos meets his untimely end by Frank's hand. And what happens to baby Thanos? Well, Frank returns him to his original place in the timeline. When the child asks him, "Then won't this timeline die?" Frank responds, yeah, it will. But at least they'll die with hope.
Number 10. Falcon. While there have been many different Ghost Riders across time and the multiverse, sometimes we only have to look as far as our own 616 backyard to find some really unstoppable versions of this character. And this includes when Falcon himself was turned into a Ghost Rider. This all went down during Doctor Strange Damnation issue number 1, where Doctor Strange basically made a bet against Mephisto and lost that bet, who at that time had basically taken over Las Vegas and had bigger plans in regards to world domination, or should I say damnation. When Falcon was transformed into a Ghost Rider, he also carried with him his skills and abilities as a hero, which made him a pretty tough one to face when Strange's Midnight Suns were called into action. When he was pulled over to the Ghost Rider side, it was in a moment of weakness when he and the other Avengers let their differences get in the way of them saving people, which basically resulted in them beginning to fight in the midst of trying to respond to the chaos that was happening in Las Vegas. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to let us know by clicking that like button. Number 9. Ghost Rider 2099. The Ghost Rider of the future is basically like the Terminator. Kenshiro Cochrane was attempting a hack with his gang when they were attacked by a rival gang, who basically attempted to steal the encrypted data that they had successfully stolen, but hadn't yet cracked themselves. In the end, Zero's gang was killed, and Zero himself was in the process of dying, so he decided to upload the encrypted data in his last few moments to his girlfriend before attempting to fry the implants in his own head so that the gang wouldn't get any information from him in regards to what they were looking for. When he awoke, he was in cyberspace and ended up being offered a place in the world once more as a futuristic spirit of vengeance, given a second chance by advanced AI, who saw the world to be on the verge of collapse, where corporations would in essence devour and basically destroy everything. As a basically fully cybernetic Ghost Rider, Zero has the benefit of having a body that is completely made out of weapons, with him being uploaded into, in essence, a war machine. He also has the benefit of never really being able to die, as he could always just be re-uploaded into another bot if need be. Kinda like exists in like the cyberspace. Number 8. Black Panther. Black Panther is another character who ended up being pulled over to the side of Mephisto, seemingly becoming a member of Mephisto's Ghost Rider Avengers in the series Doctor Strange Damnation for a brief time. He's also one of the characters the Midnight Suns are forced to confront. Black Panther has a lot of power all of his own, never mind as a Ghost Rider in addition to that. He's also a pretty insane force to have on your side, especially on Mephisto's side, and operating as one of his Ghost Riders, when you also consider the political power that T'Challa has as the King of Wakanda, and at the time as the leader of the Avengers. Black Panther is one of the Ghost Rider Avengers who greet the Midnight Suns when they first arrive in Las Vegas. They are not solely confronted by him and the other Avengers though, and I suppose calling them Strange's Midnight Suns earlier was a little hasty of me, although that is kind of what happens later, considering the role that Strange plays in this story. Really, it would be more accurate to call this formation of the Midnight Suns Wong's team, perhaps. Wong, one of my favorites. Number 7. Ghost Rider Trail of Tears. This alternate version of Ghost Rider has such a tragic story, and is definitely one of those Ghost Riders that would simply never give up. In fact, in a way, him being so unstoppable was kind of his downfall, as this version of Ghost Rider became aware of the curse that basically comes with being the spirit of vengeance. Like, it literally is a curse when you think about it. For this point, we're focusing on a Ghost Rider who is still from the main continuity, but exists in the past. Caleb. Caleb was a free man who managed to acquire freedom for his wife and for himself in and around the time of the American Civil War. I love Caleb not just because he is a super powerful Ghost Rider with some unique abilities, but also because his story feels unstoppable in the sense that, I mean, it's really great. It also comes with a moral that we honestly don't see enough in stories like Ghost Rider, with Caleb at the end basically acknowledging that he is cursed to hunt for vengeance, a quest that will never end. Well, this is, I guess I should more say, although Ghost Rider we do touch on it a little bit more, but in comics we don't touch on that as much as I think we should. And Caleb realizes that no matter how noble the cause may seem, anyone that hunts for vengeance is basically already damned. Number 6. Mighty Thor. Mighty Thor would have to be one of the most epic characters to have become a Ghost Rider in recent history. I mean, the power of Thor and Mjolnir alone are insane. Combine those with becoming a Ghost Rider and you become pretty undefeatable, I would say. We see this happen in action when Mighty Thor Jane Foster also joins Mephisto's side of the fight against the Midnight Suns in Doctor Strange Damnation. In issue number 3 of the series, Mighty Thor swings her hammer at Blade, and later we see her in one-on-one combat briefly fighting against Dr. Voodoo. Fortunately, that was all that was needed for Johnny Blaze, also fighting alongside the Midnight Suns against Mephisto as opposed to for him, to push ahead and face Mephisto himself. However, it just goes to show how hard it is to actually fight against a Ghost Rider version of Mighty Thor. And even then, Mephisto's Ghost Riders, Mighty Thor included, seem to be doing their job at that point, remaining pretty unstoppable, at least as of issue 3, as Mephisto takes away Johnny's curse, freeing him and making him human again, only so he can basically threaten his now very mortal life.
Number 5. Noble Kale. The first official Ghost Rider, Noble Kale was alive in the 18th century and grew up with an abusive pastor father that was eventually revealed to be a minion of the Dark Lord Mephisto. After secretly marrying and having a kid with a woman by the name of Magdalena, Pastor Kale's secret was found out by her and he accused her of witchcraft and had her burned at the stake. Just before she died though, she used a curse to summon demons called Furies with the sole purpose of avenging wronged women, and they started killing the townspeople. Fearing for his life, Pastor Kale struck a deal with Mephisto. He would be kept safe and Mephisto got Noble's soul. Mephisto realized that Noble was attached to a piece of the Medallion of Power, and he activated that piece to transform Noble into the original Spirit of Vengeance, and with that power he was able to take down the Furies. Pastor Kale for some reason then made an offering to the Ghost Rider in the form of Noble's son. However, Noble as Ghost Rider didn't want to accept that at all and killed himself instead. Mephisto later appeared to claim Noble's soul, and then his brother Archangel Uriel appeared and said that Noble's soul should be spared. Now, like most sibling arguments, an agreement was impossible, so they compromised and decided that his soul would remain in the void until it was rebonded with certain members of his family. Check the story out for yourself, starting with his first appearance all the way back in 1990's Ghost Rider Volume 3, Number 1. Number 4. Barbara Ketch. Finally, a Ghost Rider on our list today not from Earth 616. Hailing from Earth 11,993, Barbara Ketch was the sister of Daniel Ketch, who became the Ghost Rider of their world after her brother was killed. Now, it's not really stated, but it's assumed that she shares the same powers that her brother's 616 counterpart had, but for some reason never used her penance stare because she straight up just preferred killing. Surprisingly, she was able to suppress the Spirit of Vengeance's influence through sheer willpower alone, but she still went on a killing spree anyways, taking out her brother's killer and any other villains that she came across. It took the combined power of Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and Johnny Blaze to stop her reign of terror, and they did so by separating her body from the demon. As soon as she was back to her normal self, she regretted her actions so much. However, she didn't get the chance to make up for her sins because she died shortly after. Check out her one-off appearance for yourself in 1993's What If, Volume 2, Number 45. Number 3. Ghost Rider 2099. Kenshiro Cochrane, hailing from Earth 928, is the next on our list today, and for good reason. Zero in the 2099 Marvel timeline is a cybernetic take on the Spirit of Vengeance as opposed to the supernatural being we might be used to. Originally, he was a hacker for the street gang known as Hotwire Martyrs, and one day they were attacked by the rival gang the Artificial Kids, with a Z, and most of the martyrs were taken out. In a last-ditch effort to escape them, Zero did his best to screw them over by transferring the encrypted file to his girlfriend and then jacking directly into cyberspace in an attempt to burn out his headwear implants. He woke up in a very surreal cyberspace inhabited by incredible machinery known as the Ghostworks, and they enlisted Zero as an agent of change. Before hitting the streets, Zero used the robot's holographic capabilities to wreath his skull-like head in artificial flame as an homage to his fallen comrades. That also served to make him look very similar to Ghost Riders of the previous century. Since he's not an actual Spirit of Vengeance, he doesn't have the powers you would normally associate with Ghost Riders. However, that doesn't mean he's not a formidable foe. While still driving the classic motorcycle, Zero used holographic camouflage, nanite regenerative abilities, eye-mounted lasers, and more to take down his enemies and get revenge for his fallen comrades. Check out this story for yourself, starting with 1994's Ghost Rider 2099, Number 1. Number 2. Caleb. Okay, back to Earth 616 for now, folks. 2 years after the Civil War was over, a former captive named Caleb stumbled upon and took in a wounded soldier named Travis Parham and nursed him back to health. One day, Parham discovered a cave that held a collection of glowing skulls. Upon touching the skulls, Parham saw a vision of a hellish nether realm populated by a creature with a burning skull for a head. Caleb told Parham that the creature he saw came from his ancestors' country and could be called upon when something needed to be made right, an instrument of vengeance, if you will. After Parham left, Caleb and his family were sadly killed by George Reagan, and Parham swore to return years later to get revenge. What he didn't know was someone was already beating him to it. This Ghost Rider killed each of Reagan's men and finally Reagan himself, and the killers returned after having made a deal with a demon. In a final showdown between Reagan's band and the Ghost Rider, Parham discovered that the rider was actually his former friend Caleb, powered by the spirit of vengeance that Travis had envisioned years ago. This Ghost Rider has all the powers you would normally associate with Ghost Rider, as well as 2 other powers. Possession, which allows him to possess and control corpses, and dimensional travel, which allows him to, travel to other dimensions at ease. Check him out for yourself in 2007's Ghost Rider Trail of Tears number 1. And number 1, Ghost Panther. This Ghost Rider variant comes to us from the Warp World, and if you don't know what this is, let me give you a little taste. Put most simply, it is a pocket dimension of Earth 616 where history was rewritten and adapted around fused heroes, such as Iron Man and Thor as Iron Hammer, Captain America and Doctor Strange as Soldier Supreme, and of course, Ghost Rider and Black Panther as Ghost Panther. The principal contest, Kushala, was an arrogant boy who, because of his conflict with his father, was exiled from his home country. He traveled to America where you found Jericho Simpson, a fusion of Brother Voodoo and Crash Simpson, who ended up becoming his new father figure and even gave T'Challa a new name, Johnny Blaze, and he ended up becoming a pretty successful stunt performer. Fast forward 5 years, and during a stunt, he sensed his father T'Chaka dying and got very distracted, which resulted in his own death. He was then revived by Zarathos, half-sister of Bast, and offered him powers in exchange for eating the souls of sinners. At first he was reluctant, but when battling his father's killers, he accepted the offer and became Ghost Panther and battled Eric Killraven, a fusion of Eric Killmonger and Killraven, while riding a burning panther. Check him out for yourself in his first appearance in 2018's Infinity Wars number 3.
Number 10. Iron Ghost. Iron Ghost was a member of the Black Legion in Age of Apocalypse. He's a fusion of Iron Man and Ghost Rider, and let's be real, he looks really fierce. Wearing the armor of Iron Man and wielding the chains of Ghost Rider, he fights alongside the rest of the Black Legion, including Orange Hulk, Manphibian, and Demon Hawk. This is actually a really sick team. It's kind of a blast seeing them in action, and Iron Ghost, although kinda crappily named, is pretty damn cool. Number 9. Hell Driver. Hell Driver is basically Ghost Rider meets Dukes of Hazzard, and he's pretty awesome. When he was introduced, we saw him chasing after 2 vampires who had kidnapped 2 people and were disguised as a sheriff and deputy. With the help of Devil Rig, the trucker Ghost Rider, Hell Driver tried to chase the villains down. Hell Driver was a short-lived creation that we didn't get much of a chance to learn about, but he drove a muscle car, which was so sick I couldn't not include him on this list. Number 8. Ghost Rider Man. In Secret Wars 2, TOO, Issue 1, we were introduced to the ridiculous Earth 617. Here, Spider-Man's Uncle Ben killed Glider-Man's Uncle Glenn to get his money. But it turns out that's okay because Uncle Glenn was going to kill Slider-Man's Uncle Sven. But oh wait, turns out Uncle Sven lost control of a steamroller and rolled over healthcare provider man's Uncle Ken. Which it turns out was okay because Albert Camus' The Outsider Man came to say that Uncle Ken was about to kill his Uncle Den. A bunch of other men showed up, including Large Hadron Super Collider Man, Ringbinder Divider Man, and Zack Snyder Man. But the one we're concerned with right now is Ghost Rider Man, who comes in and just says, "I'm Ghost Rider Man, vengeance!" Ghost Rider Man was a super small part of the comic. This is just an excuse to plug Secret Wars 2 because it's awesome, so go read it. Number 7. Olek. Soon after Johnny Blaze was defeated by Daniel Ketch, Molek came to ask for his assistance in finding the remaining Ghost Riders before their powers could be taken by Ketch. This Middle Eastern Ghost Rider was quite skilled with a sword and was an influential part of the Zadkiel story arc. While he was eventually killed by Ketch, his spirit went on to defend heaven and eventually helped to defeat Zadkiel. Molek's often overlooked, but he was a rather important part of the comics, having convinced Blaze to keep fighting the good fight. Number 6. Nima. Last name unspecified. Nima was a Tibetan Ghost Rider, modeled after a deity from Tibetan Buddhism. Known to his people as Krog Thung, he defended the innocent and punished the wicked using his powers, including his version of the penance stare called the Stare of 1,000 Buddhas. The coolest thing about Nima is that he rode a flaming horse, which is absolutely the coolest way for a Ghost Rider to get around. So sick.
Number 5. Brothers.
Speaking of penance stairs, let's look at the fun time when Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch both penance stare each other one after another. Danny had been running around stealing the Ghost Rider powers from various Ghost Riders around the world to feed an addiction he had developed for said power. He did take the lives of many of these Ghost Riders. He's not a great person. So when Johnny confronted him, their battle was incredibly brutal and really cool to read, I'm not gonna lie. There was a point where Johnny causes a massive explosion that shakes the Himalayas. Now after this, Johnny went to show his brother the error of his ways by using Danny's penance stare move on him, which is when Johnny learned of all the things Ketch had done. I guess the stare works differently for riders, as Danny just got up and eventually did the exact same thing back to Johnny. Gotta love brotherly love. Number 4. Mojo World. When the Avengers are transported to Mojo World in Uncanny Avengers Annual number 1, Mojo tampers with Blaze's mind, making the Spirit of Vengeance believe it had created a child, which shut down Johnny Blaze's influence. Without Johnny keeping it in check, Ghost Rider will seek vengeance on all life, perceiving life itself to be a sin. Ghost Rider rides to an artificial moon and unleashes his penance stare upon Mojo World, causing the entire population, no matter what they've done, to feel the weight of their sins. Doctor Strange manages to shield the heroes from the penance stare, stating that they must exorcise the Spirit of Vengeance from Blaze, resetting the curse and tempering the spirit. The heroes then attack Ghost Rider. He incapacitates Thor. Satana attempts to exorcise him but is incapacitated before she could do so. Man-Thing attempts to consume Ghost Rider but is destroyed from the inside out, and with no other options left, Scarlet Witch confronts him. As Ghost Rider charges at her, Rogue grapples him, using her powers to pull the curse into herself. Number 3. Snap. Remember that time Green Goblin took Gwen Stacy to the George Washington Bridge? You know, the whole spine snap thing? Well, Ghost Rider, Robbie Reyes, unknowingly sort of relives that moment. Robbie's classmate and bully, Guero, had been taking pills created by cartel leader Dr. Zabo. He created a gang with his friends called the Blue Crew. When Eli, on the pill, attacks Robbie, the Ghost Rider is actually being controlled by the spirit of his uncle, Eli, who trips Guero, making him fall off a bridge. Now Robbie takes back control and attempts to save Guero using his chains. He pulls Guero up with like a powerful yank, and Guero flies back up and lands on a metal beam back first, breaking his spine and folding him in half the wrong way. Number 2. Michael Badalino. As a boy, Michael suffered a terrible tragedy. One day, Michael's father was attacked by Johnny Blaze's Ghost Rider, who was being controlled by an evil entity at the time. But Badalino Sr. went mad after the attack, and he de-lifed his wife, daughter, and himself, leaving little Michael all alone. Following that tragedy, Michael grew up obsessed with getting revenge on the Ghost Rider for what he did to his family. As an adult, Badalino struck a deal with Mephisto to become a Ghost Rider-like creature known as Vengeance, who had to be defeated. But I don't know, it feels a little hollow, as he was definitely wronged by the Ghost Rider, and I kinda take his side here. I don't know. What do you think? And in at number 1 is Zarathos. As commenter Rodney Lindsay made note of pointing out in part 1, the greatest sin Johnny Blaze, the Ghost Rider, ever made was becoming the Ghost Rider at all, by making a deal with Mephisto. Johnny became bound to Zarathos, the Spirit of Vengeance, after making a deal with the demon Mephisto to spare the life of his surrogate father, Crash Simpson. While this was an act to try and help another, it ultimately was a ruse, as Crash passed on anyways, and now, with the power to control Hellfire and to inflict pain on those he deemed evil, Johnny would go off trying his best to be a hero, but treading a much more darker path, taking lives of sinners and leaving some as empty husks of their former selves, allowing him to make the bad decisions he has made in both parts of this list.
And at number 10, an amalgamation. One may initially think that the Cosmic Ghost Rider is simply just an alternate version of Johnny Blaze or Danny Ketch, the most popular characters to have taken on the Ghost Rider mantle. In actuality though, the man behind the Burning Skull is Frank Castle, the Punisher. Now his life up until the event that turned him into the Cosmic Ghost Rider is seemingly the same as Frank Castle of Earth 616, but his origin story is a mix between the Punishers and the Ghost Rider mythos, as we'll learn in our next number. And at 9, his origin. The Rider's origin story was revealed to us several issues after his first appearance in Thanos Volume 2, Issue 16. We find out that during Earth's last stand against Thanos, Frank Castle, as the Punisher, was involved in the battle. but was knocked out by the debris of a building that the Hulk was thrown into. Castle died, and his soul went to hell. That's when he encountered Mephisto. Unwilling to let go of his grudge against Thanos for slaughtering everyone on Earth, he made a deal with Mephisto, which turned him into Ghost Rider, and subsequently sent him back to Earth. But by the time that he returned, it was too late. Everything on the planet was abolished, and Thanos was long gone. Now, as the Ghost Rider, Castle would spend years and years roaming Earth, a planet filled with death and decay, as an immortal. It was a lonely existence. Even Mephisto himself began to ignore him. Castle started to go insane because of it. And at 8, Galactus. Luckily for Castle, he wouldn't be alone for much longer. Unannounced one day, Galactus arrived on Earth, badly injured from fighting Thanos, looking to recruit the help of anyone still left alive. He had no idea that Thanos had already eliminated all life on Earth though, so when he ran into only Castle, he was surprised. But Frank took this as an opportunity. The Ghost Rider offered to give Galactus the planet in exchange for his help to take down Thanos. Galactus accepted and made Ghost Rider his new Herald, endowing him with the power cosmic to transform him into the Cosmic Ghost Rider. The two would then set out on a journey over the next several centuries to prevent Thanos from achieving his goal of annihilating every living being in the universe. Up next, number 7, the return of Thanos. Thanos would eventually catch up to them though, putting their crusade to an end by killing Galactus. He beheaded the Great Devourer, and seeing the abilities that Castle had as the Cosmic Ghost Rider, offered him the chance to be his herald of sorts. It was an offer to see more evil than he had ever imagined in his lifetime, and to punish it. At a loss, Castle agreed and became one of Thanos' servants. Moving on to number 6, Baby Thanos. Turns out besmirching evil wasn't the only thing that ended up being on Castle's agenda. Thanos had a plan, and needed him in order to execute it. Thanos, now going by the name of King Thanos, of course, made Castle use the Time Stone in order to drag a younger version of the Mad Titan into the future. King Thanos believed that by having the help of a younger version of himself, he could impress Lady Death and finally win her love by killing one of the most difficult and powerful individuals left in the universe, the Fallen One, who was once known as the Silver Surfer and had served as Galactus' herald long before the Cosmic Ghost Rider did. But turns out Thanos wasn't filling Castle in on the full plan. He didn't actually need his younger self in order to defeat the Fallen One. Instead, King Thanos planned on killing his younger self in order to impress Death and ensure that he would be with her forever. Talk about masochistic. This plan would be interrupted by the Fallen One, but more on that later.
Number 5, Robbie and Eli. So this one's a little murky. Robbie Reyes is the current Ghost Rider and he's great. He's super interesting. His car is hella cool. I just find him to be a smidge bit more evil than his other counterparts, and that's because when Robbie Reyes becomes Ghost Rider, he is not a spirit of vengeance. Robbie is instead possessed by a ghost of a guy named Eli. Now it is revealed in all new Ghost Rider number 8 in 2014 that Eli was not a spirit of vengeance like Johnny Blaze's Zarathos, but instead Eli is Robbie's uncle and a satanic serial de-lifer who took the lives of and dismembered at least 37 people in rituals before he was finally taken out by the police in 1999. And he lived in the house that the Reyes brothers, Gabe and Robbie, took to living in. So while Robbie himself isn't necessarily a bad dude, not entirely, the alter ego he now lives with is indeed quite evil, and they constantly have to do mental battle for Robbie to stay in control and not completely give in to Eli's bloodlust. That's a no for me. I don't know. Number 4, Power Obsessed. Ghost Rider Danny Ketch was an interesting one for sure. His spirit of vengeance happened to actually be an ancestor of both him and Johnny Blaze named Noble Kale, who became a spirit of vengeance. In Danny Ketch Ghost Rider number 2, Danny gets the spirit exercised from him, but instead of doing him good, he went a little bonkers, craving the spirit's power like some kind of addiction. He tried to set himself on fire in Times Square to get the power back. That's how crazy he went. He ended up hanging out in bars, fighting other people just for fun. Yeah, sounds like a blast. But in a turn of events, he was fed doses of the Ghost Rider power, feeding his addiction. Then he began hunting down the other Ghost Riders and Verminous Rex, taking him down and absorbing a whole bunch of Ghost Rider souls and quote-unquote overdosing on the power. The Archangel Zadkiel intervened and saved him, but made Danny one of his knights, hunting down other spirits of vengeance, which led him after Johnny Blaze and saw Danny convince a young man, Lucas Collier, to end end his own life. So yeah, he's kind of absolutely horrible. Number 3, throwing his brother off a bridge. Speaking of Danny Ketch, he is actually the brother of Johnny Blaze. In the beginning of Ghost Rider Volume 9, Johnny Blaze was the king of hell. Something that happened in Damnation after Johnny's soul was sent to hell and he convinced Zarathos to help him in a journey to usurp Mephisto's throne. Either way, Johnny Blaze began capturing demons roaming the earth. He tried to recruit the help of his brother, Danny, but Ketch refused and tried to convince Johnny that his position as the king of hell was corrupting his soul. Blaze didn't seem to like that too much, and so he very unceremoniously stripped Ketch of his spirit of vengeance and threw him off the Manhattan Bridge. Nothing like stealing your brother's power and throwing him off a bridge, am I right? Luckily though for Danny, he got saved from drowning by caretaker Sarah. But this is like the 4th time Johnny has just gone way overboard, or over bridge. I'm just gonna stop. Number 2, Johnny hires Cosmic Ghost Rider. In an alternate future when Thanos was attacking the Earth and going on his mad conquest, Frank Castle was killed and sent to Hell. While down there, he made a deal with Mephisto to gain the Spirit of Vengeance and defeat Thanos. The only problem is, when he came back, he was too late and Thanos had taken the lives of everyone on Earth. So he roamed the Earth totally alone and it drove him insane. Castle made a deal with Galactus to gain the power cosmic in exchange for the Earth. So now, it's Frank Castle with the Spirit of Vengeance and the power cosmic. Yes, it is as cool as it sounds, but him going bonkers has made things much more interesting. Unfortunately, he actually goes on to sort of join Thanos in his quest. A lot of stuff happens with the baby and adult Thanos, but basically, in Earth 616, Johnny Blaze is the king of hell, forces this Cosmic Ghost Rider to attack the Avengers in Avengers Volume 8 number 24, and forces Robbie Reyes into a race for Robbie's power, threatening the life of Robbie's brother Gabe. So yeah, this is Johnny being a jerk again, hiring an insanely powerful Cosmic Ghost Rider to de-life the Avengers. Luckily it doesn't turn out that way. And in at number 1 is Cosmic Ghost Rider. But the question is, why would Johnny Blaze make Cosmic Ghost Rider go after the Avengers? And what's so wrong with that? Well, you see, Cosmic Ghost Rider in his quest against Thanos actually joined up with Thanos, like I said before. And then he went back in time to try and raise a baby Thanos to be a better Mad Titan, as in, like, less death obsessed. This brought him into direct conflict with an alternate Guardians of the Galaxy led by Cable. Now when the fight finally starts, Cosmic Ghost Rider is trying to shield baby Thanos from the violence, so he hands the baby over to Uatu the Watcher and starts going to town on these Guardians. The only problem is Cable keeps using his time traveling abilities to bring back more and more heroes to take on this Cosmic Ghost Rider. By my counting, the insane Frank Castle Cosmic Ghost Rider took the lives of about 41 different time-displaced superpowered beings. And when he was finally overwhelmed, he had failed completely because he was saved by the baby Thanos, who took out the remaining heroes. And then a Punisher-dressed Thanos from the future shows up calling Frank dad. I don't know, it's insane. Just go read it.
Number 10, Speed Demon. Coming at us from the Amalgam universe, a parallel universe that is composed of mashups of some of our favorite Marvel and DC characters that was unfortunately destroyed thanks to the cross-multiveral conflict, comes Blaze Allen, a combination of Barry Allen and Johnny Blaze. Once a stunt rider working at a carnival, Blaze Allen becomes the Speed Demon following the death of his wife at the hands of the evil Night Spectre. He was convinced by Merlin to bond with the demon known as Etrigan, and from there the entity known as Speed Demon was born. Granted the abilities of Ghost Rider, including his fiery powers as well as super strength, Speed Demon is not actually all that fast despite what his name would suggest. While the character is a formidable fighter and an all-around powerful being, he falls very short in the speed department, especially compared to any other speedster out there. There have been other characters who have taken up this mantle, including both Jay Garrick and Wallace West. However, all of their abilities seem to be similar to the originals. Check out Blaze Allen for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1996's Speed Demon, number 1. Number 9, Kushala. Hailing from the main continuity Earth of 616 in the mid-1800s, Kushala was an Apache woman possessed by the spirit of vengeance known as the Demon Rider. To add a whole other layer of powers and depth to her character, she was also the Sorcerer Supreme of Earth at the time, making her ridiculously strong because not only was she capable of the demonic transformation and pyrokinesis that's normally associated with Ghost Rider, she could also fly and practice various types of magic, including Norse, Chaos, and Earth magic. Instead of the motorcycle or motorized vehicle that the modern Ghost Riders have, she possessed a phantom horse engulfed engulfed completely in fire. Before becoming the Spirit of Vengeance, her tribe was attacked by the US Army and her parents were unfortunately killed, so in an act of revenge she prayed for help, but instead of receiving any help from the creator, she was instead possessed by the Spirit of Vengeance. While searching for a cure to rid her of this demon, Kushala was recruited by Merlin himself with the promise of exercising the Spirit of Vengeance if she helped him with something, which led to her involvement in the War of the Realm. Check her out for yourself in 2016's Doctor Strange and the Sorcerer Supreme. Number 8. Nima. This iteration of Ghost Rider, also known as the Wrath of Heavens, the Blood Drinker, or He Who Seeks Vengeance in Our Name, isn't modeled after the normal Spirit of Vengeance that we're used to. It's modeled after a wrathful deity of the Tibetan Buddhism, and its design and methods very much reflect that. The full abilities of Nima haven't really been revealed, but it can be assumed that he possesses all the powers given to every Spirit of Vengeance. However, he possesses a penance ability fashioned by his beliefs. Known as the Stare of 1,000 Buddhas, this specific penance stare is highly potent and enables him to punish those who have wronged the innocent by forcing them to feel the pain of their victims. Nima was able to attack and destroy 2 Chinese military posts, but before actually attacking them, he offered them the chance to escape before they would face his wrath. Unfortunately for Nima though, he was found by Daniel Ketch, a former Spirit of Vengeance, and his powers were absorbed by Zadkiel before Johnny Blaze was able to find and protect him. Check out Nima in 2008's Ghost Rider Volume 6, number 28. Number 7. Shoba Mirza. Needing the power of the Spirit of Vengeance more than anything, she sought out Danny Ketch because she heard that he was the greatest of all time, which was a little bit hard for her to believe at first because of his very drunken state. Little did she know that Daniel had the Ghost Rider entity exorcised from his body completely by his friend Mary LeBau, so he wasn't really going to be any help to her. Not long after Daniel witnessed Shoba's transformation into Ghost Rider with a bit of a fun twist on it, as she rode what looks to be like a fiery elephant instead of a motorcycle, and she had 4 arms which allowed her to wield a spear, a bow, and a sword all at the same time. Shoba was eventually taken prisoner by Verminous Rex and Zadkiel, and although Daniel searched for her night after night, he couldn't find her. Somehow, she's actually the one who found him. Wounded beyond repair, the entity inside her threatened to take control, and Shoba begged Daniel to rescue her. He wasn't sure what to do, but like a parasite, Ketch just leached her powers into himself. Shoba's human half had been saved, and she thanked Daniel even as she passed away in his arms. Give her story a read for yourself, starting with her first appearance in 2008's Ghost Rider Danny Ketch, number 1 all the way to number 4. Number 6. Ghost Rider 1 million BC. You could probably guess it from the name, but this iteration of Ghost Rider was around way before Johnny Blaze or any of the other hosts that we all know very well because they were active during 1 million BC. Very early on, he realized he was much smarter than the rest of his caveman pack, a fact that he ended up keeping to himself because he didn't want them to know that. One day, a Wendigo in disguise took over his tribe and eventually ate everyone except for the boy. Instead, Wendigo gave him the name Ghost and gave him the task of finding him again one day. Ghost set out on his quest but quickly realized he might be a little bit in over his head as the harsh environments were taking a toll on him. However, he was then approached by a snake who tempted him into saying his real name to achieve his goal, and from that point on he was bonded with a Spirit of Vengeance and rode a mammoth imbued with hellfire. 5 years later, Ghost finally tracked down the Wendigo to exact his revenge and engaged him in an intense fight that ended with the Wendigo pushing Ghost's mammoth off a cliff with him, though the Wendigo claimed that he would survive the fall. The rider was then approached by Odin and Lady Phoenix, who asked him to join the prehistoric Avengers, and together they defeated the Fallen and sealed it in an underground chamber in what would become the modern day country of South Africa. Check out Ghost for yourself, starting with 2017's Marvel Legacy, number 1.
Number 5. Robbie Reyes. Well, not really an alternate in the traditional sense, considering that Robbie is the current main Ghost Rider in the Earth 616 continuity right now. He's not necessarily the first person most think of when it comes to the Ghost Rider mantle, considering that he's the latest one to become the main Ghost Rider in canon, but you know, isn't the person that's been Ghost Rider the longest, I'd say. Fans of the more classic Ghost Rider character likely think of Johnny Blaze, or perhaps, if they were comic fans more in the 90s, Danny Ketch. And while the first person I do think of myself is Robbie at this point, well, maybe like Johnny and then Robbie, it's pretty close between those two, this is why I decided to include him here. Also, it's hard when we talk Ghost Riders, plural, to keep it all multiversal. I mean, there's just so many powerful and amazing Ghost Rider alternate characters that exist just within the main universe. Robbie Reyes may be one of the new riders on the block, but that does not diminish his power or the fact that he often refuses to back down from a fight, even fights that seem completely unwinnable. Number 4. Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel also for a time became a Ghost Rider during Doctor Strange Damnation. In fact, in issue number 4, we see her fight against Doctor Strange himself, taking him on in his own Ghost Rider form. Alas, she is also a pawn of Mephisto's, which means for our heroes in this story, she is just the wrong kind of unstoppable, one they have to battle against, and honestly, you do not want to fight an unstoppable villain, especially one that packs as much of a punch as Carol does on a good day, and who also now has the added bonus bonus of all the Ghost Rider's powers too. Fortunately, Wong has a few tricks up his sleeve, and Carol ends up turning her Ghost Rider wrath on Mephisto in the end, thanks to some major plays Wong made in secret, which are then revealed of course. He knew Mephisto's weakness, that while he ruled on Earth, his seat in Hell would be vacant, and so he sent Johnny Blaze to his doom, knowing that Johnny, once taken off the board on the earthly plane, would then be free to take over for Mephisto in Hell as its ruler. Pretty smart thinking, Wong. Number 3. Ghost Hammer. Hailing from Warp World, which we got to explore in Infinity Warps when Gamora folded the universe in half and trapped it inside of the Soul Gem, this is a variant that really packs a punch. Speaking of people that can pack a punch. Ghost Hammer, like many from Warp World, is of course a Marvel amalgam character. And not even just that, he's actually an amalgam character of an amalgam character within the Marvel universe. Ghost Hammer is both Ghost Panther and Iron Hammer combined. Ghost Panther is a combination of the characters of both Ghost Rider and Black Panther, and Iron Hammer amalgamates Iron Man and Thor into one character. So combining the two of those characters together, we get one insanely super powerful character that is not made up of just two different characters really, but instead 4 different ones, who have been folded together once and then of course once more to give us Ghost Hammer. Ghost Hammer comes equipped with Mjolnir, which for one of Ghost Hammer's previous forms, Iron Hammer, was also used to help him access the power of his suit. Number 2. Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange becomes probably one of the most powerful Ghost Riders to have ever ghost ridden in Doctor Strange Damnation. Here he attempts to face Mephisto alone and ends up being, well, pretty beaten at first, turned into one of his Ghost Riders. Fortunately, he has bats with him. His ghost doggo ends up possessing Steven to save him from hurting Wong. In the end, after Johnny has become ruler of Mephisto's Hell Dimension, Wong even helps Steven to become something greater, giving him the souls of all the dead Avengers for a brief moment so he doesn't have to feel alone. Aww. In essence, making him an Avenger god. But even before, when he was just a soulless Ghost Rider Doctor Strange, he would have been something fierce to see. The mystic knowledge that Steven has, combined with the powers of Ghost Rider, I'd say alone are pretty unstoppable. And when you add in a soul from bats possessing Strange's body, you also still end up being unstoppable enough. Even probably while less aware of, the finer details of battle, as I don't think Bats is, like a master tactician or anything like that. Bats though still could go head to head with Ghost Rider Captain Marvel, which I think speaks for itself. That's still pretty impressive. Number 1. Cosmic Ghost Rider. Maybe one of the most unstoppable versions of Ghost Rider around, definitely on this list, is Cosmic Ghost Rider. Cosmic Ghost Rider first appeared on the scene back in the 2017 Thanos series, and right away he became a very strange but very obvious fan favorite. I personally am one of the people that love him. He is one of the most ultimate Ghost Riders because he is also like the Punisher, an anti-hero well known for his ability to bulldoze through most of his enemies despite really just being a human without any real superpowers to speak of himself. He is also of course known for his ability to never give up, and this is showcased during his time as Cosmic Ghost Rider. Even with all of those he knew and loved from Earth gone and defeated by Thanos upon his return, Frank Castle still sought vengeance. And even after that was not possible, he regrettably joined up as Thanos' Herald and still kept going somehow. He died, went to Valhalla, and then returned to have some time traveling adventures after Odin realized he wasn't really super happy there and didn't really quite fit in.
Number 10, Adam. That's me. Wow. Say what you want about Spider-Man, but he is a hero through and through, and sometimes he needs to remind others how to be just that. In Spider-Man number 7 in 1990, Spider-Man and Ghost Rider are working together to defeat Hobgoblin. A kid named Adam gets grabbed by Hobgoblin, causing Spider-Man to look for a less direct approach. He barrels straight into Hobgoblin on his motorcycle, hitting Adam as well. Spider-Man gets to Adam before he crashes right into a wall. As Ghost Rider gets his hands on the unconscious Hobgoblin and is about to do his penance stare on him, Spider-Man interrupts him, saving Hobgoblin and giving Ghost Rider an earful about what it means to be a hero, sending him walking away in shame. Number 9, Dr. Druid vs. Ghost Rider. I think we can all mostly understand the frustration of heartbreak in some form or fashion, but I don't believe most of us turn into a spirit of vengeance when we find out our significant other has an affair. Okay, maybe some people do, but we mostly all practice practice control and restraint. When Johnny Blaze found out Roxanne had another lover, he transformed into the Ghost Rider to vent his frustrations. Unfortunately, this caught the attention of Dr. Druid, another disciple of the Ancient One like Doctor Strange. Misunderstanding the situation, Dr. Druid and Ghost Rider engaged each other in combat, revealing Johnny's true nature to some onlookers, which totally enraged Johnny even further. Their fight then traveled to a secluded graveyard where eventually Blaze tore out a gravestone and is about to completely take the life of Dr. Druid, as he claims that the more he becomes the spirit of vengeance, the more he loses compassion and the more he hates, with Druid being the one he hates the most right now. Luckily, he stops himself, but he was straight up gonna crush Dr. Druid's head, and that's not cool. Hey y'all, I know there is at least one of you out there enjoying this video who is not subscribed to us at Top 10 Nerd, you little rascal. Slap that subscribe button so I can keep doing this list. Anyways, in at number 8, a whole prison attacked. There are a lot of morally gray heroes who have absolutely no issue with ending the lives of those who commit crime. But ending one's life is still ending one's life, and it's why for some heroes it's a hard line you just do not cross. In Ghost Rider's case, instead of de-lifing some people, they suffer a much worse fate, having their very souls burned with hellfire, leaving them an empty husk. Now, there is a prison called, non-ironically, Fresh Kills Federal Penitentiary on Staten Island, where the most callous criminals are kept. After being forced into the Ghost Rider by the villain Blackheart, Johnny Blaze races towards Fresh Kills Penitentiary, where he bursts inside and fries the inmates with hellfire to burn away their evil. Although Blackheart says it's not enough. Humans always return to their evil ways no matter what penance they do. So Ghost Rider is convinced by his words and proceeds to de-life the inmates instead. I don't know, what do you nerds think about this one? I still think it's bad. Number 7, Elliot Franklin. Okay, I don't like clowns. Maybe it's a bit of a ridiculous fear. I don't care. They just kind of freak me out. That's alright. But underneath the makeup, the wig, and that damn nose, there is a real human being in there. And they are usually a perfectly lovely human being too. Usually. Elliot Franklin grew up with his father inspiring him to be an incredibly successful clown so he would want for nothing. But unfortunately things didn't pan out too well and Elliot had to turn to a life of crime just to get by, joining the circus of crime, and eventually becoming its leader, bringing him into conflict with Johnny Blaze in Ghost Rider Volume 2, Issue 73. What the Ghost Rider didn't know is that Elliot was actually a good guy at heart, and he was even trying to lead the circus into being caught. Unfortunately, no one told Johnny, and he used his hellfire on Elliot, making him relive his personal hell and reducing the clown to a weeping, bumbling, sad man, the guilt of which reverted Ghost Rider back into Johnny when he realized the truth. Number 6, use the penance stare on Doctor Strange. The penance stare takes all the pain and hurt an individual has inflicted on others with their sinful ways and inflicts it all back on that individual, usually leaving them a husk of their former selves. It's kind of terrifying. So it was kind of shocking that during an altercation between Johnny Blaze and Dr. Stephen Strange, the Ghost Rider used the ability on him. It is worth noting a few things here. 1, Ghost Rider believed Strange to be Lucifer, which he wasn't, kind of making this whole thing worse to do, honestly. And secondly, Johnny was almost fully possessed by Zarathos when it happened after suffering a massive attack from the Sorcerer Supreme. It was after the stare was performed and Strange was on the edge of life that Blaze realized this was not Lucifer. This is why you always double check someone is in fact a demon before you use one of their most powerful moves. Just a note for future reference.
Number 5, Alejandra Jones. Entering Marvel Comics in Ghost Rider Volume 7, Alejandra was born and trained alongside other orphans in a temple with one specific goal in mind. Why, to simply become one of the next Ghost Riders. Easy peasy. So when Johnny Blaze was convinced to give up the Ghost Rider curse, the Seeker was then resurrected to pick the next Ghost Rider. That's when Alejandra got her big break. She was first sent to Ohio to fight Skadi, the Red Skull's daughter. She lost, but still, she jumped right into the action. It was happening for her. She was a very powerful Ghost Rider nonetheless, but her reign came to an end once Johnny realized that he goofed up and he got his status back. After that point, she was upset. She swore revenge on Johnny, of course, because I'd be upset too if I had that power and then all of a sudden it was taken away from me because some other guy learned a lesson. I'd be like, great, I'm glad you're good. Can I still have that? Number 4, Ghost Rider 2099. Kenshiro Cochrane made his first appearance in Ghost Rider 2099, issue 1, back in 1994. He was a hacker who rolled with a gang called the Hotwire Martyrs, residing in Transverse City. This gang was so badass, one day they stole encrypted data after hacking a fiber optic trunk line. Just as intense as a heist, for sure, just as badass. So while this was happening, in comes another gang, even more intimidating, called the Artificial Kids. The kids with a Z, of course, to make it cool. All these cool, nerdy gangs. They actually killed everyone. It was indeed a massacre. It was very intense. No jokes this time. Kenshiro, street name Zero, decided to transfer the encrypted file to his girlfriend during this, and at the same time hack cyberspace to erase all his headwear implants. So Elon Musk's future is basically confirmed. We can look forward to that, nice. Then he wakes up in this new cyberspace called Ghostworks. Zero was sent back to the real world as their agent of change. The machines created a Cybertech 101 warbot, souped it up with nanotech weaponry, camo abilities, self-repair, and of course a copy of Zero's personality downloaded into his neural net. Very futuristic, different version of Ghost Rider, but still counts. Number 3, Red Hulk Ghost Rider. In the Circle of 4 storyline, Captain America ordered General Ross to go after Venom, and while they went at it, Mephisto's kid, Blackheart, brought part of hell back up to Earth. Lovely. This all takes place in Venom Volume 2, Issue 12. And it's great timing because Red Hulk made an alliance with Venom, X-23, and Ghost Rider. They were all actually killed in this battle. And then in hell, Mephisto did his thing and then offered the heroes another chance, all that devil stuff. And then all they had to do on their part was take down Blackheart. They got the spirit of vengeance and planned to get it to Johnny Blaze so he could become Ghost Rider again. So the Red Hulk at one point had the symbiote and the spirit. How intimidating is that? Number 2, Frank Castle, aka the Rider, coming from the pages of Thanos Volume 2, Issue 13, the Thanos wins storyline. So the Punisher actually died a pretty random way. A piece of debris from a building fell on him, and then he ended up in hell. Okay, that's one way to go. He was pretty eager for revenge, so he signed up a few contracts with Mephisto, became the last Ghost Rider, and then headed back to the battle. Only the thing was, when he returned, the dust had already settled long before. Thanos was gone, the planet was empty, it was a wasteland. The new Ghost Rider was quite bored for many, many years. Even Mephisto stopped answering his calls, and then he started losing his mind. Galactus then eventually came along, and Ghost Rider offered the dead planet in exchange for another go at Thanos. So they traveled the cosmos together. How fun, little duo. They found Thanos, Thanos cut Galactus' head off and promised the Ghost Rider more evil than he could punish in 1,000 lifetimes, so Ghost Rider became his servant for a bit in the comics. Shaking hands with all the devils now, eh Frank? Okay. And finally, number 1, Ghost Spider. Coming from Earth 11638, aka the Perfect World, this Peter Parker has a much brighter beginning. Meaning Uncle Ben actually never passed away and gave the whole great responsibility speech. Instead, he just continues to encourage Peter to become a stronger Spider-Man as he gets older. A little pressure, okay, how does that affect this Peter Parker long term though? Where's the butterfly effect difference in this universe with Uncle Ben being alive? Well, Uncle Ben pushes Peter to abduct Spider-Man from other worlds and absorb their life force via this portal that Parker Technologies proudly created. Now eventually our Earth 616 Spider-Man shows up, they fight it out, our Earth 616 Peter Parker comes out on top with the amazing Spider getting his soul sucked into the machine. The perfect Spider-Man spirit was then trapped in the underworld, and then from here it only gets more strange. Literally, Banner at this time was the current Sorcerer Supreme. So he freed that Peter in his astral form, but Peter absorbed all these spirits of the damned while he was down there. So when he came back, he was now Ghost Spider. What a series of horrible but also cool events.
Number 10. He gives up fighting the Hulk to let him sick the Illuminati. One of the Hulk's most awesome and powerful moments came in the World War Hulk story, when the Incredible Hulk gathered up his warband on Sakaar and headed to Earth for some much desired revenge on the Illuminati. The Illuminati had tricked Hulk, banished him into space, left him stranded on a world where he was forced to become a gladiator and work his way to become king, and then the ship they sent him there on self-destructed and caused the passing of tons of people he cared about. So yes, the Illuminati deserved what was coming to them, but they still tried to put up a fight. When Hulk arrived on Earth more mad than he has ever been, there were only two people who ever had a chance of bringing him down. The first was the incredibly powerful Sentry, and the second was Ghost Rider. When Ghost Rider showed up and started fighting, the Hulk decided to try and squash him like a bug, quote unquote. Only problem was, now that he had knocked out Johnny Blaze, Zarathos was allowed to take a bit more control, and he attacked back with so much hellfire the two got to an almost stalemate. The not so bad thing that we're talking about though is when Zarathos, who only punishes the guilty, sees that Hulk is truly innocent in this situation. So he betrays the Illuminati and basically allows the Hulk to go ahead with his destruction. Honestly, kind of awesome. I wasn't even upset. Let's find some better examples. But before I do that, do you like anime as well as comics? Well, luckily for you, now we have a full channel completely dedicated to nerdy videos about specifically anime and manga. Go check out Amazing Top 10 Anime. Let's just move on. Number 9, Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch. Yet again, I can't really say I blame Johnny Blaze all too much for this one, but still. When Danny Ketch became a new Ghost Rider after Johnny had imprisoned Zarathos in an amulet, Johnny was more than a little suspicious. Johnny Blaze traveled from the west coast to confront this new Ghost Rider, thinking that Zarathos had returned somehow. Blaze hunted down Danny Ketch Ghost Rider and tried to take his life multiple times while Ghost Rider kept attempting to escape Blaze and bring the villain Blackout, who was dispatching multiple people, to justice. Johnny kept this up until he finally watched Ghost Rider save a child in Central Park. This finally made him become less suspicious of Ghost Rider, and he stopped trying to take him out repeatedly. He instead decided to observe Daniel to make sure that he wasn't Zarathos, and he taught Daniel how to fight and protect himself when he wasn't transformed into Ghost Rider. So ultimately he made up for it, but still a little impulsive with the old de-lifing there, Johnny. I want to tone that down. Number 8, Alejandra Jones, Hellfire Exploded a Country. Alright, buckle up because this one involves Adam. Not me, like the biblical Adam. In Marvel Comics, Adam has devoted himself to one day eradicating sin from mankind, at any cost, even human souls. To that end, Adam took in orphan children and trained them within a Nicaraguan temple to make them perfect as hosts of the Ghost Rider. Now, with the Fear Itself event and the arrival of the Serpent, Adam decided this was a sign to make his move and offered to free Johnny Blaze from the Ghost Rider. Adam awakened the Seeker and had him pick the new Ghost Rider among those students that he was training. Alejandra Jones was the one chosen and was immediately sent to battle Scotty, who was one of the Serpent's avatars. Now when she came back, Adam demanded that she destroy the sin in the other orphans, which would leave them as husks. She obviously refused, but in return, Adam enslaved her. Now Johnny Blaze, realizing he made a boo-boo, journeyed to Nicaragua to stop them, but Adam turned Alejandra's power into a bomb that went off, taking away the sin from the Nicaraguans, turning them into mindless emotional shells of the individuals they once were. The only ones unaffected by this blast were Johnny and the Seeker. Basically, Alejandra was used to destroy the whole country of Nicaragua. Number 7, Beat Up Angel. So back in the Avengers Volume 1, issue number 214, Johnny Blaze and the Avengers come into conflict. Johnny was hanging out on some rocks in New Mexico, brooding and hating on the world for everyone who abandons him, when all of a sudden, Warren Worthington III comes zooming down the road in a Ferrari with a girl in the passenger seat. Johnny seems to get really jealous and decides to scare the hell out of the couple, causing Warren to crash the car. Johnny then challenges Warren to a race. Now to be fair, Warren gets a good punch in on Johnny, but that just makes the Ghost Rider use his Hellfire to burn Warren's soul and put him into a coma. Kind of really overdoing it there, Ghosty. Thor, Tigra, Iron Man, and Captain America head to the area of the incident to take on the Ghost Rider, only for him to give them much more of a fight than they probably expected. Number 6, Killing Starseed. There was a time in the 70s when Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider joined up with the team known as the Legion of Monsters. While not entirely bad, some of the characters here were monsters, and they did indeed give in to their monster tendencies. One such moment would come in Marvel Premiere number 28 in 1975, when a seemingly peaceful alien from a highly advanced race came and plopped a mountain down in California. It caused a bunch of earthquakes, which attracted the Monster Legion, and thanks to Morbius and Werewolf by Night, who gave in to their hunger, they attacked the alien. Now admittedly, the Ghost Rider tried to intervene, but they still, as a group, caused the passing of Starseed, and he even helped them to get back their non-monstrous forms. so it was kind of rude.
Number 5. Johnny Blaze. Johnny Blaze is a motorcycle stuntman who, in an effort to save his surrogate father, Crash Simpson, from dying of cancer, made a deal with the demon Mephisto. Mephisto promised to cure Crash's cancer in exchange for Johnny's service. Unfortunately, Crash perished in a stunt gone wrong almost immediately afterwards, and Johnny became the Ghost Rider. Although he has tried to rid himself of this curse many times over the years, Johnny has used his powers to punish evildoers and do a lot of good, despite the evil inside wrestling for control. He is the most well-known Ghost Rider, possessing all of the iconic powers that come with the title. As he is the original Ghost Rider, other than Carter Slade, a hero with the same name but different powers, he is the barometer to which we are comparing all the other Ghost Riders and their powers, placing him at the middle of this list. Number 4. Alejandra Jones. When Johnny Blaze gave up the Ghost Rider curse, the spirit of vengeance transferred to Alejandra Jones. Jones had trained her entire life for the opportunity to become a Ghost Rider so that she could punish the sins of humanity. Because of this training, she was able to be an extremely powerful Ghost Rider, although she lost a huge amount of this power when Johnny Blaze reclaimed the Ghost Rider identity. For the time she had it, she was incredibly strong. She had the power within her to be transformed into a kind of bomb who wiped out all of the sins of everyone in Nicaragua. Number 3. Cosmic Ghost Rider. The Ghost Rider of an alternate dimension where Thanos killed everyone on Earth. This rider made a deal with Mephisto so that he could seek out and destroy Thanos. Riding his space motorcycle, the rider teamed up with Galactus to hunt down the Mad Titan. When that failed, he went back in time in an attempt to kill Thanos as a baby. He instead raised the baby Thanos, somehow managing to make him even worse. He traveled the cosmos, punishing evildoers, becoming the first Ghost Rider to take their mission to an intergalactic level. But who was this version of Ghost Rider? What makes him so determined, ruthless, and vengeful? The answer? He's Frank Castle, aka the Punisher. You don't get much more dangerous than the powers of the Ghost Rider paired with the abilities and psychosis of the Punisher. Number 2. Robbie Reyes. Robbie Reyes was a street racer charged with taking care of his little brother Gabe, until one night he was killed in a carjacking gone wrong. Thankfully for him, his car was haunted by the ghost of his sadistic uncle Eli, who revived him and transformed him into Ghost Rider. Robbie now spends his time fighting evil, trying to be a good role model for his brother, and battling the spirit of his uncle in order to try and prevent himself from becoming a force for destruction. He has comparable power levels to other Ghost Riders in most areas, but ability to teleport pushes his stats up considerably, moving him near to the top. Number 1. Red Hulk. On a list that's focused purely on power levels, it's hard to imagine a more powerful combination than the one that occurred in the Secret of Thor storyline. When Mephisto's son, Blackheart, enacted an evil plan to literally bring hell to Earth, the Alejandra Jones Ghost Rider, X-23, Agent Venom, and the Red Hulk were there to take him on. When this wasn't enough, the team decided that the best course of action would be to bond the Spirit of Vengeance and the Venom symbiote to the Red Hulk. This led to a creature with the combined powers of Ghost Rider, Venom, and Red Hulk, taking on and beating Blackheart in perhaps the most over-the-top action display Marvel has seen in years.